Hi, and welcome back to the North Lodge Cottage Garden. A question I am asked several times a day is how I go about looking after my roses and, more importantly, feeding them, whether I'm growing them in the ground or whether I'm growing them in a pot. Now, I don't have very many roses in pots. I've got about half a dozen dotted around the garden. Most of my roses are in the ground, and as you all know, I mulch. I'm mulching to a depth of at least 4 inches, which is 100 millimeters, across all borders just before Christmas every year. If you're like me and you've also got a few roses in pots, this is my guide to how you should be looking after them in the next few weeks. I just want to touch on a subject I've spoken quite about a lot in the past, and that's if you're top dressing your pots off with anything to keep the surface of the soil shaded from the sun. If you are, please do make sure that you're using a small particle sized gravel, something like a pea shingle, or like I do, a horticultural grit. And by doing that, you'll make sure that you're not actually superheating the soil during the hottest parts of the day and keeping the soil in the pot warm right through into the late evening. If you are going to use a slate mulch or a Scottish cobble, you're going to absolutely cook the root ball of the actual plant. Temperatures here in the UK are now regularly getting well up above 30 degrees, 28, 29, 30, 31 and into 32 on a very regular basis. That is really, really warm. Large stones and cobbles the size of your hand heat up and keep the heat through into the latter part of the day, meaning the root ball of the plant continues to cook late into the evening. So if you can, keep the particle size of any decorative gravel that you use to a very, very minimum, something between 10 and 12 millimeters, just to make sure it can't actually hold any heat. The most important thing you need to bear in mind here is you need to remove the top 3 or 4 inches of soil, and we're going to be doing that for the main reason is going to actually replace some soil here just over a second. So because Bring Me Sunshine is a little on the spiky side, I'm going to put on my my favourite gloves from Henchman, which are a really nice pair of gloves, and I'm just going to, with a garden trowel, remove the first 3 or 4 inches of soil. I've got a bucket down alongside me that you might not be able to see, and just using a garden trowel I'm going to remove the top 3 or 4 inches of soil, just to give us some room to work with. Obviously that's going to remove the decorative horticultural grit that I've put onto the surface of the soil. And like mulching in the garden, I'm then going to apply a decent layer of fresh media. In this case I'm going to be using Eco Mix coarse mix, which is their bed and borders coarse Eco Mix. This is the same product as I use all over the garden. I'm going to get my hands in here now to remove a little bit more soil. Don't worry if you disturb some of the roots. Obviously roses are very, very deep rooted plants, so most of the root system is well down into the bottom of the pot. And like mulching in the garden, this has a very, very basic principle. If you add organic matter to the soil in your garden, it does a multitude of different things. First of all, if you're working on a very, very heavy soil, adding mulch to the very top of that surface will draw up worms and other soil living creatures up to the surface of the soil that will feast on that matter and drag it down into the soil, opening up its soil structure, which will improve aeration and, of course, drainage. Also, on the flip side of that, adding organic matter to your soil, whether it be in the garden or pots, adding organic matter can actually increase your soil's ability to hold water by up to 25%, which is absolutely staggering, which means not only are you feeding and nourishing your plant with all the trace nutrients and energy that it needs to flower and perform for you as you want it to during the summer months, but it's also going to mean that you have more time to sit and enjoy it and less time watering, which is really, really important. Those factors apply across the garden everywhere. So mulching, whether it be in a pot or whether it be in the ground, is really important. So now that I've removed around 4 inches of the topsoil from this particular plant, all I'm going to do now is replace it with some new Eco Mix. So this is Eco Coarse for beds and borders. It's made up of 100% natural organic derived organic matter from green waste, which has been shredded and then composted, which is absolutely packed with nutritional value for the plant. Adds humus and organic matter, so it's going to be able to hold more water and also add all the nourishment and feed the plant needs over the next part of the season. So we're going to bring that right up to level now. Just firm that out with our hands, give that a good firm down. I think I might need one more compost scoop in there to replace that media, maybe another one. What we want to be doing is we might make sure we want to bring the plant back up to its original soil level. We don't want to be exposing any of the crown that was above ground, and we, like for like, we don't want to be raising the soil level in the pot either, and also which could cause the plants to rot or have fungal problems around the stem. So now that's done, all that's needed for me to do is to re-top dress the rose with some more horticultural grit, which I've got here, and it's probably easier for me to shake that out of the pot. I'm going to put on around 1 inch to 1.5 inches of horticultural grit. That not only looks nice, but is also going to suppress any weed growth that we might get in the top of this pot, but also it's going to stop transpiration and evaporation from the actual top of the pot, which is going to reduce the watering and make sure that it holds much water in longer dry spells. There we go, all done. The practice is really very simple, and it's exactly the same whether you're containering gardening in a pot or whether you're growing the rose in the ground. All I've done is simply give it a really good mulch and replace the top dressing on the top. I hope you find my guide to feeding your roses in pots helpful, and if you have any queries or questions, of course you know how to get hold of me. As always, I'm the Gardener Ben, and I will see you very soon. Take care now, bye bye.